Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. We are definitely at the time of year where some of us have the coldest water temperatures of the year, and it can be tough fishing. But a lot of the people that are having the most success are keying in on really clear water. It seems like in clear water conditions, you still get more bites when the water temperatures are at the coldest period for the year. It's a lot harder to generate those bites in muddy, dirty water. And because of that, a lot of the most successful fishermen key in on the parts of a lake that are the most clear. So I get a lot of questions from viewers that want me to talk about clear water because they know that I'm very familiar with it. We've got a lot of natural lakes in the upper Midwest here, as well as the Great Lakes, where we have water clarity that can be down to 20 feet. We have some lakes where it just depends on how strong the sun is and how calm the day is, and you're going to be able to see the bottom in almost any conditions. So I feel like I've got a lot of experience regarding what baits generate more bites in that super clear water versus, in some of the other baits that don't seem to generate much. So I do think there's a very specific group of baits that you want to key in on anytime you're dealing with clear water. And the clearer the water gets, the more important it is to choose the right bait because it's harder to fool fish. They just get that much of a better look at your bait. So I want to talk about my favorite baits that will generate bites in super clear water. These baits work all over the country, and pretty much anywhere you go in the country, you're going to have lakes that have super clear water. Most big reservoirs even may not have clear water on a good chunk of the body of water, but down by the dam, you may still have 4 to 6 feet or more of water visibility. So pretty much anywhere you're at in the country, you're going to have clear water somewhere around your area and where you live. So we're going to get into that. I do want to remind you guys that if you want to support the channel, you can go check out the lake breakdowns that I've done for lakes all over the country. I specialize on southern smallmouth impoundments, as well as all northern lakes from the East Coast to the West Coast. And you can check those out at fishthemoment.com. The link is in the video description. It's a really good way to support the channel. Also, if you want to support the channel, you can do your tackle shopping at Tackle Warehouse through the affiliate link that I've provided in the description. I'll put up links for all of these baits, and if you do your shopping there, it helps support the channel. You can also bookmark the Tackle Warehouse link just to make sure that future purchases come back to the channel as well. It's very much appreciated, and I think most of these baits are all covered there. I'm not really going to talk about anything that's super crazy, but I do think that there's very specific types of baits that work, and these are the baits that I use. But keep in mind that if you've got favorite baits in this is a similar technique, that those will most likely work as well. So for me, the way you want to go about it is you want to have baits that are going to stay higher up in the water column, because those are generally baits that fish, if they're looking up at, are not going to get a great look at. Or you go the complete opposite and you want to be on the bottom with very natural type baits. So for me, we're going to start from the top of the water column, work our way down. In clear water, a topwater bait is absolutely dynamite. I personally prefer a faster moving walking bait in those conditions, like the Jaywalker here by Berkeley. This is one of my absolute favorite colors. It's the CJ Shad. So it's a translucent bait with a chartreuse back on it, and it seems like it's a very, very good clear water bait for me, no matter where I've gone. I had to fish on this bait at Lake Mead a few years ago to win the US Open. It just seems like they really like that chartreuse, and it's still a translucent bait, so they don't get a great look at it. But the key here is just having a fast moving topwater bait that creates some commotion on the surface. The fish can see it from deep. In clear water, you'll get fish come up from 10 or 20 feet down to hit it. I mean, when you really think about 20 feet, that's not that far. It's the length of a 20-foot bass boat. So it's not that far if they can tell where the bait is. If they can hone in on it, they'll come and eat it from that distance. But a walking topwater bait is an absolute must in my opinion. Dropping down a little bit more in the water column, especially in cold water situations. So the topwater is really good in the summer. In the spring and fall and winter period, As we all know, a jerk bait like this Berkeley Stunna is an absolute must. Jerk baits are so good at generating bites in clear water. The fish just, they can come and look at it and stare at it, and they still cannot resist a jerk bait. A color like this Northern Lights, which is again translucent, little chartreuse, a little bit of a purple hue, natural looking back on it, is an absolute killer color in clear water. But there's just something to be said for a jerk bait. Again, you're keeping the bait up above the fish. It's an erratic motion that triggers the bites. So the fish may be sitting there behind it. And one thing we see now with the forward-facing sonars is how much these fish follow like a jerk bait. They'll sit behind it for a while. And it's that snapping motion of the jerk is what's triggering the fish into biting. So that's really important. Moving below a jerk bait then to get maybe a little bit deeper, I really like the small swim baits. In a 2.8 or 3.3 size on obviously a Dirty Jigs Matt Steffen guppy head, it seems like small swim baits are just that small bait that triggers fish into biting. They cannot resist it. Whereas if you went with a bigger one, say a 4-inch or 5-inch swim bait, it becomes that much harder for the fish to resist it. It's something that they just they don't want to eat a big swim bait compared to a little one. The little ones are like candy. The big ones are a little bit harder for them to go and get. So a small swim bait, and the thing I love about this is you can work this down much deeper, 15, 20 feet down, just depending on the head that you want. But a slow, steady retrieve, it's like a tantalizing thing for a fish. And pretty much anywhere you go, if you've got clear water, a tiny swim bait, the 2.8, 3.3 sizes, you know, the two that I use, this is the Berkeley Power Swimmer. I also like the Kitech Fat Impacts. Those are the two that, in my opinion, you need. And that's really candy anywhere you go in clear water. Next up, guys, you've got your plastic flukes. This is a Zoom Fluke, which again, you can utilize at almost all different depths. If you want to work it on the surface, you can do that. If you want to work it deeper, using some weights and get it down a ways, you can do that. Some people throw it on a Carolina rig. Again, the thing here is it's just a super natural bait fish presentation. You can get them in a lot of natural colors, and they have a good jerking motion that just generates bites in clear water. There's a reason people love to use fluke style baits, and it's because they catch fish. And it's just one of those baits that, again, in clear water, you got to have. The last one is my bottom choice, and this is one that might surprise you a little bit. It's a casting jig. This is a Dirty Jig Clausen casting jig, which to me is a phenomenal summertime, super clear water bait. If you've got some weed growth that's around, or you've got just a good hard bottom area, you can stroke this. It's not a bait to cast out and drag. You need to stroke it. You need to snap it. I've done videos on how to stroke a jig in the past. I'll put that link up at the end of this video. But if you've got fish that are out sitting on a weed line or on a deep hump, you can generate them to bite a jig that's being stroked because it's such a reaction style retrieve. But I definitely always have one, you know, tied on. It's one of my favorite techniques on, I mean, there's probably 5 or 6 lakes within an hour of my house, and it's my absolute go-to, and they all have some of the clearest water you've ever seen. So a casting jig, as long as you're stroking it, is definitely a very good way to go. But those are the baits, guys. Those are the ones I key in on. The last one I want to point out, and this is no surprise to anybody, it's your favorite stick bait. This is the Berkeley Max Scent. The one thing I will say is my standard is the 5-inch size. I do like to drop down to the 4-inch size when we're talking about super clear water. I'll still rig it like a wacky rig, and it still generates a lot of bites, but it seems like that smaller profile is a really good way to go. But that's the bait that I'll throw if I'm fishing shoreline cover or going down a bank and I can see fish cruising in that super clear water. Definitely a bait you got to have tied on. I don't think that's a surprise to most people either, but don't think you can't downsize to the 4-inch. It makes a big impact in clear water. So those are the baits that I've got here, guys. They are really more geared towards categories, but all of those categories, regardless of what your favorite bait is in it, will be the baits that you want to be using in super clear water. These are baits that have been proven. If you go to any clear water body of water, these are the ones that people will be throwing. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you appreciate or you liked the video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and stay tuned for tomorrow's video.